Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ here again. Tonight's topic is a mixture of two concepts blended together involving boundaries and manipulation. This is based on normally in the early stages when you've met somebody new, whether it's a friend or a lover or both, and some cautionary information that I've been so lucky and blessed to have picked up on over the last several years. So I'll discuss a typical scenario. You just met somebody. Let's just say you've been on your own for the longest time, and then you run into somebody somehow, you meet him or her, and you spend an evening together. Great. Well, let's say that the other person says, "Oh, I had a great time. I want to see you again," and you think, "Wow, this is different. I'm not used to this." And you think, "Well, I'll just go with it." So you go. Well, clearly, well, not clearly, but now for me, clearly, that's kind of fast. You haven't heard anything yet, but let's say you think, "Oh, sure," and then you see the person again right away. Well, great. And let's just say that you've gone on a few dates here and there, and you've noticed that usually the people you've met might look nice, but when you talk to them, it's a different story, or they hate everything you love, or whatever. Yet you notice with this particular person, there are no objections to anything. You could suggest this music, and the other person's like, "Okay." Or you could suggest that music, or this style of movie, or that style of movie. And no matter what you pick, the person is like, "That's fine. Oh, that was good." Well, be aware that some people that seem too good to be true really are too good to be true. Not to say that you should say, "Oh, you like the same movie I do? Oh, it's over." No. And my advice is to keep this in your brain and just keep it there and maybe discuss it elsewhere, but I wouldn't bring it up to the person in question. Maybe later if it turns out they're not cluster B, but you don't know if they're brand new and they've got that on their side to their advantage because you don't have a clue. It could be the most messed up person in the world, but you won't know that because all you've seen is compliance with every wish you have. All you've seen is happy times. You've had no arguments. So beware if you've met a new person and it all seems just too perfect. Because in a normal, whatever that is, situation, two people aren't going to agree on everything. I mean, they just aren't. And when you've been involved with others who are not cluster B, you realize that. Like you might say, "Oh, listen to this new disc I bought," and it's country music, let's say, and the guy or woman says, "Oh, I can't stand country, please turn that off." Well, see, that would not look like a cluster B, because the cluster B would be like, "Oh, yes, I love it," no matter if it does or doesn't. But anyway, what will typically happen with this is the potential cluster B will shower you, as we've mentioned before, shower you with praise, tell you how good you look. If he or she thinks you think you're overweight, they'll tell you how thin you look. Or if they think that you look old, they'll tell you how young you look, and whatever the case is. And you'll hear all this and think, wow, and maybe you're not even like 100% into the whole thing, but you'll justify in your mind, but, well, we get along. Oh, he allows me to do what I want. Oh, she doesn't mind that I like to play country music at midnight. So things like that, which I don't play country music at midnight. That's just an example. But the point of this is that beware of someone who's too good to be true. Expect to have a disagreement about something to be in a healthy situation, because if they're going along with everything, you kind of get the impression they're just a complete void inside and just sucking up whatever you throw out and acting like they like it. So anyway, what will typically happen is, let's say you do this for a few days, maybe a few weeks here and there, and you notice, well, we've covered the daily texts or calls or both to you, and you think, wow, I haven't had somebody be on my phone this much, this often, it kind of feels like you're being watched a little, but the messages are sweet and lovely and nice. So you think, well, maybe I'm just overthinking things, but you realize you don't know anybody else that will like text you every hour of the day. Oh, I just did this. Oh, I just did that. Oh, I'm thinking. And it's kind of strange, but again, it may be flattering. So you have to look out, but keep it to yourself and just think about it. And what will happen though, and here's the part that is controversial, or was for me, and figure might as well tell you because nobody told me. So all or nothing type people where I'd explain, you know what, it's nice to have fun with you, but don't expect any type of romance or anything. I'm not after it. Well, that does, in fact, that seems to pull them closer because I tell so many of them that, and they all play the same rule book list. They follow the same list, and what they basically do is you're taking things slow because you're cautious, because you've been through this and you've been through that, possibly, maybe not. If you haven't, well, some of us have. So when you meet another person and they're so forward and everything they say is great, everything they do for you is just like tailor-made for your life, even though you didn't even ask for a lot of the stuff, it just gets done for you. You're like, wow, I didn't even ask for that. Well, the deal here is you'll notice if you think about it, if you really focus, these people are compensating. They're not if they're cluster B, they're not a real person. They're not like a real personality. They are adjusting to meet your world. So what they'll do to compensate for the fact they can't really emotionally connect with you or to you, instead they'll make up for that by cleaning your table, washing your dishes, oh, cooking your dinner, oh, cleaning your windows, doing your lawn, whatever. Doing things when, like we mentioned in another video, you sneeze and they rush over with some cold medicine. Like stuff like that that's not really normal, and it's kind of nice, and then you feel guilty to yourself thinking, why am I questioning this person? This person's just trying to be nice. Well, don't be upset with yourself for that, because you're right. This is goofy. It's not normal for someone you barely know to pay attention to your every single need. But if you question them, you'll be told, I don't know what's wrong with you. I was taught to be nice. And they'll say that to you, so you'll feel like a fool because you felt something naturally and you try to address it and you're told, that's silly. That's just who I am. So if you find yourself dealing with such a person that you kind of can't really feel the justification to say, hey, I think this is fishy because of all the great things he or she's done for you, this message is for you. That's exactly where they want you. Because you'll probably notice, if you're like in my case, you're not running out to do every little thing and like the person's doing for you. So it's kind of like you are the star. You're on a pedestal. You are being treated like you're royalty, and you realize that that's kind of irrational, but at the same time it's happening. So you'll like brainwash or brainwash yourself to think, oh, I'm just overthinking things. But the point of this is that they will continue the love bombing, and because they know you do not want to see another person suffering for any reason, much less cause it to happen. So when this person steps over yet, which I mentioned boundaries, these people, if they're cluster Bs, they don't know what a boundary is. So they may, after like a week, tell you how great it would be for the two of you to live together, and especially if you look at his or her situation, he or she is like living in a house with 6 roommates, or living at parents' house, or doesn't have a house. Be aware of those people, because they will be in love with you from the first date if you let them. But let's say you are where I was. I had either my own apartment or I had my own home, whichever example we want to refer to. It doesn't matter, they're all the same, because they all read from the same rule book. But what I would notice on several occasions is remember, the lack of the emotional connection part, but then there's the other overage of favors, gifts, things that you didn't even know you needed but were taken care of, and so on. Well, the deal here is a lot of these people, if they're a cluster B, what they're doing is they're trying to flatter you, they're trying to kill you with kindness, because you know there's no like connection as far as anything deep or meaningful. It's all pretty superficial. So when you keep that in the back of your mind, and then you hear the person saying, you know what, you should let me move in here with you, you can see that, oh, he does live with 6 roommates. I bet he does want to be out of there. And you have to look at it from this way, not to be a paranoid schizophrenic, but just to realize that, because I've met tons of people who don't have the ideal living situation, and then I'll spend a time with them or two, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want to be with you. Like, no, you want a place to stay without 6 roommates. You have to be careful, but again, don't tell them that, because you'll be told that you are crazy, even though you probably hit the nail on the head. But anyway, it's tempting for us in these situations if, let's say, you do have your own apartment or your own house, and you're there by yourself, and you've met the person who's got 6 roommates or 2 roommates, and they pull the love bomb crap, but at the same time can't really connect with you, and you can feel that when it's not there. You can tell, but they try to disguise all that with all the gifts and all the attention. And if you even say, I think this is kind of too much attention, you'll be, well, the other person will put themselves into a victim, like, fine, I was just trying to be nice. I guess it's just too much for you to accept that someone might really like you. And you'll hear lines like that, which are phony. But the point is, let's say after a few weeks, and you're still like wondering, is this person right or wrong? All of a sudden it tells you, I've been evicted. Can I move in with you? And they will do stuff like this. Or, my roommate says I have to move out. She's got a new roommate. Things like that, which are manipulation tactics to try to get you to welcome them in. And even if you've already stated, I'm happy by myself, they may say, I know you said you're happy by yourself, but just give me 2 days until I can do this or go there or there. Scam. Possibly, probably, if it's cluster B. But the point of it is, when you hear this stuff, they're going to give you their sob story. They're going to say how terrible it is that they have no place, and of course they've already put their insurance policy in by giving you gifts and doing things for you and making you the person on top of the pedestal. So you, with your emotions, may feel kind of obligated, which is the whole point. And of course, if you were to want to give you the illusion that they don't expect anything, because for situations like this, they know that if you tell them no, then you are going to look like the bad guy, because he or she has already done all this for you, and all they're asking for is just 2 days to live with you, and you're saying no because, like in my case, I'd be like, no, I don't want that. I made that clear. But they will try to use the fact that you are a regular human being with emotions and thoughts and remorse and whatever, so they will twist it. And of course it's strange how good they are at that, yet they're so bad at emotionally connections. That's a sign. Look out for it. But my advice about this part is, because I've had many occasions where the other person has spent limited time with me, but is saying things like, oh, I want to live here with you. And if I say, sorry, I don't think that's a good idea, these people will act like you've offended them. Well, you have to keep in mind, cluster B people typically do not have normal boundaries. They feel their way through, like if after the first date and they call the second night, you're like, it's kind of soon, they'll be like, oh, sorry, and they'll adjust, but eventually the true colors show. And what you have to remember here is these people, they're the ones with the problem. They do not have healthy boundaries, which means you could meet them and see them 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden they're like saying, let's move in together, everything's perfect. Well, that is a blatant disrespect for your boundaries, and also it shows that this other person doesn't have any, because a regular person would think, oh, well, we just met, let's see if we get along before we lit. But no, they have ulterior motives. So what's typical, or what's common, is if you're a nice guy or gal, you may feel like, well, he or she did do all this for me. Oh, it wouldn't hurt. Oh, okay. But after you've done that a few times and been burned 1,000 times, when it comes up again, you have to learn. Get rid of your empathy temporarily. It's kind of like, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Rip off your nice personality that's real, and you have to put a fake one on to match your opponent, because the other person is fake. So what will happen is the other person is clearly demonstrating no boundaries by saying, hi, we met last week. By the way, I'd love to live here. And that, again, if a person had boundaries, they would not do that. And here you are, the vulnerable one, saying, I don't know you that well. I don't know if that's good. And then you'll get the, I can't believe it. After all I've done for you, you're going to be so selfish. And that's one of the tricks they pull, which ties the manipulation in. And you'll be tempted to believe it, like, oh, wow, maybe he or she's right. Oh, okay, oh, you sure, oh, sure. That's manipulation, what they're trying to do, because they know you care. They don't, but they know you do. So they can try to convince you that they're in pain because of you, and then you'll be thinking, oh, well, how can I fix this? Okay, sure. My point with this is, after dealing with this at least 4 or 5 times in a row, I finally got to the point where when I see that crap going on, even though I may look like a cold, heartless witch, when they pull that stuff after the first few days, I'll say, no, sorry, don't do that, or some kind of line, and I don't feel any kind of guilt. Now, I would normally if none of the other crap had happened, but they're banking on you feeling that guilt and adjusting. But here's my take on it. The fact is, the other person is clearly not balanced as far as emotional connections and the requests they're making, as far as like living together and marrying or whatever. And you are not in the wrong for realizing this, as far as, okay, you did my laundry, you did my car, but I don't feel like I know you. Well, you're not supposed to know them, because if you did know them, then they wouldn't even be there. So don't beat yourself up. In fact, you have to actually become, like, adapt to be like the sociopath or the psychopath or the narcopath or the narcissist, because that's what they are all the time. And you have to, like, put your mask on to be like the Romans are and think, well, if this is what I'm dealing with, well, then I'll proceed accordingly. But on a final note, yes, I've watched myself go through the very scenarios I've just mentioned, where I thought, oh dear, he did do this for me, oh, maybe it's all part of the game. And it's tough, because if you are really dealing with such a character, you can't really expect to address it with that character and get anywhere, because you'll be told with gaslighting, oh, you're silly. Oh, I just liked you. Sorry. And then they might pull a sorry, I cared, or whatever. But anyway, this is just a little lesson. It may not apply if you've already gone beyond this stage, but if you haven't, pass it on. Enjoy.
Can't we do something about these weapons? Oh, these weapons? Can't we do something? Why can't we all just get along? How did I do? We're still rolling. Oh! my son. My son's name is... Oh. Don't record that. Oh, cut that, please. So you may wonder, you may ask the question, why? Why would I bother to even talk in detail?